Good morning, and I'm Sunita Mirchandani. I'm the UAE Lead Advisor for Education and Training based at the British Embassy in Dubai. And today I'm going to just kind of talk to you about a bit about the UAE for people who don't know much about the UAE. And I'm going to be talking about the educational sector, how to succeed in the market, understanding the Emirati culture, there are a lot of kind of misconceptions. How do you succeed in the market and how we can help as UKTI. So primarily, as you see, UAE is a federation of 7 emirates, which is Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Fujairah, Al Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, Ajman, and so we've got Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, Ajman, and Al Quwain. It's the only country in the world that has 2 British embassies, one in Abu Dhabi and one in Dubai. Abu Dhabi is the federal and political capital, and Dubai is the commercial and regional hub. The UAE actually remains UK's largest market in MENA and 12th biggest globally. So it's a very, very important market. And the thing to note is that the UK-UAE trade performance has remained very strong in spite of the economic downturn. So that speaks quite, it tells you a lot about the market. The population of the UAE, as you see, it's very peculiar. It's 5.5 million, 1/3 is in Dubai, but in terms of demographics, only 15% of the population of the UAE is UAE national, and the rest of it is expatriate. In fact, in Dubai, the percentage of expatriates is even higher. It's almost 10% UAE national with 90% expatriates. And this has, a bearing, obviously, on the curricula in terms of education. There are about 16 different curricular schools in Dubai itself. Very, very big demand for international schools, particularly British schools. Now, in terms of the fact that it's a very, very, there are multicultural cities because of the sheer expat population. So there's diversity, and the latest development, which is you should know about, for those who don't, Dubai has actually won the bid to host Expo 2020. And this is obviously going to impact on the education sector. Now, I've come up, put down some educational facts. I think before we do that, we need to talk about why the UAE. So, as you can see, it's the biggest export market in the region, and it's 12th overall, which I mentioned before. Home to a lot of UK nationals stay there. In fact, the largest number of overseas lawyers outside the UK are based in the UAE. So again, very, very strong UK presence, and we've got very close, the UK and UAE have very close political and historical ties, and the UAE is very keen to build a knowledge-based economy and position itself as the academic hub. And it is, in fact, Dubai particularly hosts the largest number of overseas branch campuses in the world. So they have 52 higher education institutions in Dubai, and they actually have education-free zones, which are called Knowledge Village in Dubai International Academic City. So, again, why the UAE? Because there's a big market for it, and British goods and services are very highly respected. Now, key educational facts. You can see the number of pupils that we have studying in private schools. And again, it's actually anticipated that we're looking at least 140,000 more seats needed by 2020. So, how does this translate in terms of the number of schools that are needed? And it's anticipated that they will actually need the equivalent of about 110 new schools to be established, and the demand for UK schools is the highest. Now, the private education sector in Dubai continued to grow with a 7% increase in student enrollment over the last 5 years. And education was the only sector that continued to grow even during recession. So, very important. And as I mentioned, 52 HE institutions in Dubai, 8 branch campuses of UK universities, 7 out of which are in Dubai. So we have London Business School, we have Cass Business School, we have Manchester Business School, we have Heriot-Watt, we have Middlesex University, we've got the University of Bradford, and we've got University of Strathclyde, all in Dubai, and we've got University of Bolton, which is in Ras Al Khaimah. And UK, in fact, is the largest provider of overseas higher education in the UAE, with about 15% of higher education students studying in a UK university. So, very, very strong educational ties already, but there is scope for more. Now, UAE, has the UAE government is very, very keen to build a knowledge-based economy, and education is very high on its agenda, which you can see, the amount of money that was actually allocated, as part of the federal budget for education. Now, very recently, as recently as December, Sheikh Mohammed, who is the Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai, he actually convened an extraordinary retreat in Banias Island in Abu Dhabi, and they wanted to look at 2 sectors, and they actually looked at the healthcare sectors and the education sector. And these were the 5 main themes that they discussed. So in terms of opportunities, you can link into all of this, because especially teacher training, and developing teacher skills. So all of that was discussed at this retreat, and there are, they actually opened it up and they allowed people, everybody to tweet. They allowed them to actually feed back what they thought was needed for the UAE. In terms of demand, there's a very, very big demand for reputable British schools, and again, early learning centers, because that is one sector that is not regulated. So nurseries were under the Ministry of Social Affairs. Nurseries will be also taken care of by the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, as long as they have an educational element, and it's going to be regulated, which means that demand for good quality nurseries is very big. And again, UK curriculum schools are the most popular in Dubai, with more than 70,000 students. And these students are experiencing, these schools, the British schools, are experiencing the highest growth in student numbers. Now, again, there's a demand linked in for effective teaching methods and partnerships in curricular setting. There are plans to set up national centers for R&D. Now, when I mentioned that they had the cabinet retreat in December, and healthcare was one of the things that discussed, healthcare was, they discussed having R&D in the medical sector in cooperation with medical institutions in the country. So that's, again, something to bear in mind. Now, another very important thing that, you need to know is that in May 2013, when Sheikh Khalifa, who's the president of the UAE, visited the UK on a state visit, and he actually met the Queen, there was an MOU signed to promote mutual understanding when developing skills and qualifications. So we've always been talking to the UAE government about UAE-wide recognition of higher education and further education, and we actually managed to get an MOU signed. There were 2 MOUs, one on trade and one specifically on education on qualifications framework. So the National Qualifications Authority, which is the key qualifications body, which is it's federal body based in Abu Dhabi, has been tasked for taking it forward at the the UAE end, and British Council UK will be taking it forward from the UK end. But that should, then open up opportunities once the recognition takes place for further education and professional qualifications and vocational institutes, which at the moment is not really recognized. We do have, the likes of City and Guilds, Pearson, Edexcel, ACCA, CIMA, all operating in the country, but because it's not recognized, there's obviously, it's a challenge. Now, because obviously BET is an educational technology and a resources show, I thought it's, you may want to know the kind of educational resources that are in demand. Now, when I've mentioned curricular resources, the other thing that is also in demand is GCSE and IGCSE curricular resources. That's also in demand. In terms of special resources, again, sports education is becoming an integral part of most of the school curricula. So that's in demand. Preparation of exams. For exams, there's, IELTS preparation. There's a lot of, institutions offering stuff like that. Now, the reason I've talked about online learning and technology integration, because educational resources is not just about schools. There's you can have these educational resources for companies, for private and public sector organizations. And from that perspective, they want online learning that's compliant. They want online learning that's accredited, because online learning on its own is not recognized again in the UAE. In fact, even for higher education institutions that want to deliver courses in Dubai, there has to be a 50% face-to-face learning component, and then you can have a blended learning approach in online learning. But again, software that tracks learning, because companies don't want to spend money on educational resources where they have the software and there's, they don't track how the employee has benefited or learned. So that's again something to bear in mind. Now, again, from the UAE perspective, what's already available? So, there are hardly any local manufacturers of educational resources in the UAE except for educational furniture. But there are a lot of GCC-based companies that work as catalog companies, import in bulk and sell. And UAE, Saudi, and Egypt, there's a big market, from companies there providing these resources. Now, the largest consumers of educational resources are premium and mid-range private schools, followed by government schools. But remember, procurement for government schools are through tender processes. And if you have to supply to a school in Dubai, then you must have an office in Dubai to be able to bid. And if you have to supply to a Ministry of Education in Abu Dhabi or the Abu Dhabi Education Council, which is ADEC, then you've got to be actually based in Abu Dhabi. So either you have to have a presence there or you have to have a partner there. So in terms of educational resources, the competitors for the UK, USA, China, India, and Egypt. Now, doing business. So how do you go about doing business in the UAE? Now, UAE does have a very liberal economy, and we're actually expecting that the UAE as a whole will grow steadily at around 3 to 4% per annum through 2016. Sorry. There's a misconception that UAE is like the rest of the Middle East and you have to speak Arabic. That's not true. English is widely spoken, and many younger generation Emiratis are Western educated. For the Ministry of Education and the MOE curricular schools, Arabic is a distinct advantage, but not for the rest of the private schools. Now, again, it's a market, like I said, spoiled for choice. Dubai is not like the rest of the Middle East. A lot of consolidators already operating there. You have the likes of Findel, with a representative office. You've got consolidators like CS Holdings doing business. So you have to have a unique offer. And unlike what happened about 15, 20 years ago, schools are looking for best value for money. So that's something to bear in mind. And again, it's all about partnership. You've got to have partners, you've got to have a local presence, you've got to demonstrate a long-term view, you've got to demonstrate a commitment to the market. And if you're there, you have a partner, they know that you're on hand, you're going to be there long-term, you're not just going to come, do business, and then walk away. And again, they know that there's someone on hand to help with procuring, using, and maintaining the resources. So it's very important to look at the partnership. Now again, it's good for you to know, understand Emirati culture, because at the end of the day, you're going to be doing business with Emiratis. So although many young Emiratis, as I said, they're Western educated, globalized, they're used to doing business, English is widely used, but hierarchy matters. A lot of the key decisions are usually made at the top, and protocols must be followed. Image is really essential. It's all about personal relationships. It's who you know and not what you know. So it's a lot more than what you know, and you must show interest. You might go in for a meeting and they're talking to you about their personal lives, and they say, oh, you're from this area, my son studies there. So you might land up having a conversation for 20 minutes about personal stuff and 10 minutes on business, but that is important because they've got to be comfortable dealing with you for them to do business with you. So you don't have to kind of go in, oh, I have to be very business-like. No, you've got to win their trust and confidence and make them feel comfortable talking to you. It's very, very important. And again, the reason I've mentioned avoid humor is because sometimes the British sense of humor there is considered dry. So, okay, at the introductions it's fine, but do be a little careful about what you say. And again, expect decisions to be deferred. People say that I came in, it sounded great. That's because they don't like to say no. And you might go back saying, but they said this, and I was expecting them to come back. So please, no, expect decisions to be deferred, and don't push it. Yes, follow up with a mail, follow up with a call, but they might not come back to you only because they're too polite and they don't want to say no. So, that's it. You need to know that that's a challenge. So play the long game where necessary and be patient. Because one good thing is that if they deal with you, they're comfortable dealing with you, then they won't go to anybody else unless something goes drastically wrong. So it's a long-term relationship. In terms of route to market, there are a lot of routes. So, in cases of groups of schools, so like you have the GEMS group, you have the Talim group, you have the Raffles group, like GEMS now, have their own procurement division with a lot of people, so they procure directly from suppliers. And again, if you're exporting directly, then clearing agents is the best, route to use. Again, through agents and distributors, and as I mentioned, through consolidators like, CES Holdings, doing a lot of business already in the market. Local companies, there are a lot of well-established local companies supplying varied resources to schools. Like, again, I mentioned Findle, they have an office in Dubai, so that helps. Now, for ministry, government tenders, they must be registered in the Emirate. A lot of people kind of say, oh, I'm going to set up in a Sharjah free zone, and I'm going to set up in a Ras Al Khaimah free zone, and I can do business in the rest of the UAE. Legally speaking, you're not allowed to do business in the rest. You're only allowed to do business in the Emirate that you're registered, legally speaking. A lot of services, service sectors, they kind of do business, but it's IT and stuff. But in terms of educational resources, the moment your goods leave the free zone, if you have an office in the free zone, there's an import duty. And there is normally a 5% import duty on educational goods, except for books, educational books, which are exempt from duty. But you've got to obviously make sure that it's, you're able to demonstrate that they're strictly educational books. So again, a Dubai-based company cannot bid for a tender from, say, an Abu Dhabi Education Council unless they have a branch office or a sister concern or a partner in Abu Dhabi. So how do you succeed? Talk to UKTI, do your homework. Now, again, the reason I've mentioned financially strong is there might be delays in payment. They're common with private schools, so make sure you have guarantees in place or factor in payment delays while costing. And again, I've mentioned identify your USP because it is a market spoil for choice. So find out what is it that you think is very unique about your offer, what is the value that you can add, and building relationships. I can't stress how important that is in the UAE market. So how do we help you? We do give you general advice, but if you need contacts, you need meeting arrangements, you need a lot more, then it's the OMIS, which is the Overseas Market Introduction Service. If you log on to the UKTI website and you type in your postcode, you'll get to know who your nearest international trade advisor is, and he will tell you from the UK end how they can help you, the passport to export and things like that. And again, we also post something called business opportunities on the website. So for those of you who haven't registered on the UKTI website, please go ahead. It's a free service. You can tick the markets that you're interested in, the sectors that you're interested in. This is applicable for all over the world, So if my colleague in Saudi goes and makes a local business development visit, somebody wants to import resources, she can put them on. So you tick the markets you're interested on the sectors, and you'll get alerts. Then you get in touch with us, and we'll get you, give you the information. We also put sector reports on there every year, which we update, free access to information. So please, again, go ahead. Now, this is a very important development that's happened very, very recently, and this is a UKTI initiative, and we've actually going to be setting up new business centers in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. In Dubai, they're hoping that it will be set up by April or May. And these are business centers for SMEs or one-man, offices that want to set up. It will be set up at the Department of Economic Development. Now, normally when you set up onshore, which means if you set up outside a free zone, you need to have a UAE national who owns 51% of your company on paper. It doesn't actually work like that. You pay a service fee every year. But this will be good because you won't need a UAE national sponsor because DED will be your sponsor. And it's going to be a business center. They're going to have about 15 hot desks. They have about 36 licenses already, so it can be a virtual office. But they haven't finalized all the arrangements of the costing, but they're hoping in April it'll be for one person, one desk, one visa, and the maximum period that they're right now looking at is a period of 2 years, so that you can then move on and decide what you want to do and partner in the meantime. So this is going to happen in October in Abu Dhabi too. So again, you can have a virtual office in Abu Dhabi, again with the Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development, safe, secure environment, incubator. And the good thing about Dubai is it's going to be an incubation center where 20% of the space has been given to UK companies and the rest of it is for Emirati incubators. So you'll have a chance to actually interact with Emirati companies also. So that's it's an advantage. And, if you need to have more information on the incubator, then there is a gentleman called Joe Hepworth, JoeHepworth, and the email address for Joe. He's the CEO of the UAE Business Centers, and it's BBC UAE. BBC, they're actually going to try and change the name, but it's BBC UAE at bbgdubai.com. So it's BBC UAE at bbgdxb.com.